First commute back, pouring rain, and then there's a turned around dump truck on the LIE before the BQE driving in. And this was before the cops had gotten there and put the flares up and everything. So everybody's just free for all, just moving around this dump truck. So I got here probably a half hour late. I know you got here about a half hour late.
Yeah, which is usually, I don't get here that early for these shifts, and I don't know, like, the normal commute or whatever, but I did notice, I was like, first time was, walk out of the house, it's pouring rain. Yeah. I had no idea, so I'm not prepared for it. Clothing-wise, commute-wise, you got to leave yourself some extra time. And then, I'm commuting along, no issue. The GPS starts getting red. Traffic is getting worse, and I'm like, there's no wiggle room here. If I leave the house at 4:25 or 4:30, there's like a 10-minute window. I had to go a different route. I didn't see the mess that you saw because I avoided it, luckily, but yeah, there was some panic that set in. But we made it.
Yeah, you got to leave a little bit earlier than that because there's always some sort of disaster.
What are we going to leave, 4 o'clock in the morning?
You have to, yeah.
I mean, come on. I want to get up at 4. I get less sleep doing this show filling in than I do on the overnight.
How's that possible?
Because if I go to bed at, let's say, 11, 10:30, what time do you go to sleep at night? On a Sunday night, for example?
It depends what's on and what's going on, how late my body...
no Sunday night baseball.
God, unless it's the Mets or Yankees,
well, right,
I'm not paying attention to that.
Of course. No Sunday night baseball involving Mets or Yankees. Normal week, not vacation. Roughly, what time are you going to bed?
I'm going to try to be asleep by 9 o'clock.
Okay, and that's a good time. My body clock is set the other way coming off the week. Usually, I'm up late. So I was tired maybe around 11:30 by the time I fell asleep. You're talking about 4 or 5 hours maybe. On the overnight, I'll go home. I'll sleep for 6 hours at least. So here, getting up, and I got to go through the day or whatever. So I get less sleep in the morning shift than I do on the overnights.
Yeah, and then I just get the avalanche of stuff that happened when I wasn't here. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Did you see this tweet? Did you see that? What's your reaction to this?
Hopefully none of it. Hopefully you get the hell away from it. Don't look at anything.
That's what I do. Yeah. And I want to ease myself back in, and then it's just like, check this out, check that out. What's going on? It's a lot. It's a lot, man. Not ready for this yet.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. Do you see this guy fighting with this guy?
Nothing like the rain and then that crappy commute. Yeah, right. And then you walk in here, all the beef on Twitter and in reality.
Right. I mean, it really is amazing. Like, until you take yourself out of it for an extended period of time, you don't realize how stupid everything is.
And how little it means.
How stupid all of this is when people are getting in fights and dumb stuff and whatever else, and this guy said that. Like, it's just so dumb.
I was away the week before you, right?
Yeah.
Nothing, like, we didn't really go anywhere, but just being away. The best part was not being on social media the majority of the time.
Right, of course.
Not checking the tweets, not checking the mentions. Just don't give a crap what anybody says, what anybody's doing. Don't care. And then you have to come back and get involved in it. To me, that was the rude awakening coming back.
Yeah, guys like me and you can't handle that stuff like normal adults.
Why is that?
I don't know. There could be many reasons. I mean, it just, for whatever reason, it's...
Can I explain my side of it to you?
Yeah.
Because I don't even think it's about, like, the criticism, which is annoying to see that, but I think it's beyond that. I feel like I need to... Not that I need to make it right, but try to have other people understand. Like, no, you're missing my point. And then
you can't do that. You're chasing your own tail.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly right. But that's what's the infuriating part for me. It's one thing to be called, you suck. How'd you get a job? Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. That you could deal with and learn to deal with it, as I feel like I have as I've gotten older. But that's the part where I feel like, no, you knucklehead. This is what I mean. Why are you so stupid that you can't comprehend it? That's why it gets me upset.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But I tried to tell this to Al, too. Like, you can't have... Twitter is just so black and white with arguments, and you can't have a nuanced conversation on Twitter. It just doesn't happen because people just throw stuff at you and it's, I'm right, you're wrong, this is why, and then then it gets to anger really quickly because you're not in somebody's face. Because, and there's no, like, hey, I could knock you out type of thing. So then things get, like, nasty and over the top really quickly.
Yeah.
It's just so stupid. The whole thing, the whole social media, Twitter, sports beef stuff is just so freaking stupid. And then when you're off and you're spending some time away and then you come back and you're like, God damn, this was just so stupid.
How was it? What was the best part of vacation? Just being away? Was it, what? What'd you do? Anything good?
We went to Fire Island for a few days. Us and another family. It was 5 kids. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Oh, that is not a vacation. 5 kids?
The house was really, it was a perfect setup, though, so I really can't complain all that much. I mean, it's a lot, it's a lot with the kids, especially when, Your daughter's probably moving around all over the place
A
now,
little
right?
bit, yeah, more so. We still try to keep her as caged as we possibly can.
What do you mean caged?
Well, we use Maddox's cage. No, there's the playpen thing. Put her in there but she's not walking yet, but definitely moving around, and she's at that point where you can't really hold her and it's just antsy, sliding out. And it's like, oh, geez, come on, you sit still for 2 seconds. Yeah, right. Right. As I was saying, I was away for a week. I feel like I need a vacation after being on vacation with a 16-month-old is not a real vacation. So I can imagine 5 kids. Like, I want less kids. We went to Sesame Place one day with my brother-in-law and his 3 kids. It's chaos. I don't want that on vacation. I want to relax.
No, I know. And then when the kids go to sleep, you're so tired you don't end up doing anything.
Right.
Finally, you get that break where they're all asleep. And then you're like, all right, now we can do something, and you're just shot. You just go to bed. You fall asleep on the couch.
And I find out, even trying to watch a show, like my wife and I, we've been into Impeachment. I don't know how long ago it came out. But whatever, we're trying to watch the show. My wife is out at 9 o'clock. The baby finally falls asleep. All right, we got the whole night. I'm ready to go.
Done.
My wife is out. Yeah, 9 o'clock. All right, I guess it's me time.
I mean, that thing, that's important to have that time with your wife afterwards when you have kids. I really do believe that. And we've sort of lost that whole thing because the kids go to sleep and then you're shot and then you're done. And it's like, I need to go to bed.
Right.
And you have no time to yourself.
And then wake up the next day and do it all over again.
do it all over again is right. I saw your guy, Andy Martino, write an article about the Mets trade deadline. And he said that the Mets don't want to do another Pete Crow Armstrong deal, meaning trading away a prospect for a rental and then having to watch that guy develop for another organization. Now, what I don't like about that theory is that they're thinking about what the result was last year with their rental, meaning they got Javi Baez back, and I understand he hit a little bit, but he was a total pain in the ass. He was a miserable clubhouse guy. He got all the crap that was going on previously in that clubhouse all riled up with Lindor and the thumbs down, and him and Marcus Stroman, they were like magnets to one another because they're both a-holes. So, and they're thinking that, and then he went and he signed somewhere else, and they didn't want to know part of him. But what they're not thinking of is how that prospect that you could trade now at this time, at least not thinking of enough, could be the guy that puts you over the top and then you go win a World Series and you go for it. Now, if they just you have the 2 moves already, minor moves, if they make another minor move and then that's it for the trade deadline, I mean, I'm going to be upset.
Right.
I am. I mean, and I understand they're great right now, but I've always been the guy that get rid of the prospect if it's the right deal at the trade deadline during the season when you got a chance to win a championship. I was 4 in 1986.
Right.
I haven't seen anything. So it doesn't mean 4, 5, 6 years down the road doesn't mean anything to me anymore. You got the second best record in franchise history starting in August, and you're worried about making another Pete Crow Armstrong mistake?
Yeah.
No.
It's completely different. I could not agree more. Now, let me just rewind. So Friday I filled in for Carton and Roberts.
Okay.
And I'm driving in, listening to Tiki and Tierney, trying to think of an angle for the show, trade deadline, whatever. And there was an article in the Post that came out and basically said, if the Mets don't get a big bat at the deadline, they're prepared to call up Vientos. So my angle was unacceptable. No more Vientos like that. Then we had Andy on the show, and he said, basically before he wrote this article, he insinuated exactly what he wrote, that the Mets, because they got burnt with Pete Crow Armstrong, blah, 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 they may not be, and that set me off. As you're saying, you nailed it. They cannot look back. Last year is last year. Number one, who gives a crap what move didn't work or did work last year? Number two, it's a completely different team. This team has a legit shot. Now, I'm not saying you got to be reckless and go give Beatty or Alvarez, whatever, these prospects. I'm not giving top prospects up fine. And I understand you want the asking price to come down a little bit. But they cannot sit on their hands here and worry about the farm system in a year where they can legitimately win the World Series with the right piece or two that's added.
Yeah, and I know that Steve Cohen said 2 things that kind of compete against one another. One is that we need to win a championship in the next 3 to 5 years of him becoming an owner. And the other was I need to have sustained success, and I want to have a strong farm system to be able to do that. So those 2 things don't always work together because he wants to be able to, have an LA Dodgers type of situation. But I mean, that's sort of rare what's going on there. And by the way, the Dodgers traded away a ton of prospects to go out and get big players to make a run to a World Series. So I don't know. The whole Billy Epler's theory on and Sandy Olson's theory on trading prospects. I mean, looking back now with the Jared Kelenic thing, for crying out loud, I mean, it was like the worst trade in the history of the world, and this guy disappeared.
Right.
So, I mean, that's an example now that we used to use to support their argument, but now we're using it to support our argument because look at what Edwin Diaz is doing and Jared Kelenic is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I get wanting to value the prospects. You cannot do it to a point where you hold back to where it prevents your team from potentially getting to another level when you have a legitimate chance. By the way, they're in a fortunate position because they don't need starting pitching.
Yeah.
And it's not lucky. This is by design. They said, okay, we understand how hard it is to get starting pitching. I'm going to go pay $43 million a year for the best guy. That's the smart move. The idiot Yankees should have done that. Why didn't they do it? Why didn't anybody else do it? The Mets were smart enough, even though they had deGrom, who was reportedly healthy at the time. They went out and bought Scherzer. They went out and traded for Bassett before the season started. Look at the price now for a starting pitching. So the Yankees need starters. Well, they get burnt because the Mariners are willing to give up more for Luis Castillo. Yankees are on the outside looking in. The Mets can sit back and say, well, suckers, we already got our starters in line. All we need is a simple right-handed bat, potentially an upgraded catcher, and a bullpen arm or two. Those things should be easy to attain. I'm not saying you got to give up the top prospects. You got to be aggressive here. They have a legit chance. Cannot sit on their hands. And the last thing I want to hear about, whether they like the moves or the price tags that are out there right now, nobody in the world, nobody in this town in particular, wants to hear about Pete Crow Armstrong.
I know.
Who gives a bleep?
Right, exactly. And then another thing that drove me nuts was, they're worried about bringing in another catcher because then you got to adjust, the staff's got to adjust to that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're professional baseball players. This guy has been a part of a World Series champion in Contreras. He knows exactly what he needs to do. You're talking about Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, Bassett, the guys who've been around, Carrasco and Taijuan Walker. They're not rookies. They'll figure it out. I mean, you're telling me you're going to sacrifice that much offense and that much professionalism at that position because you're afraid it's going to screw up your pitchers that much? I don't believe that. I mean, now maybe Boomer would call it a NARP take and say that, no, these guys, really, they get used to I know Bassett once complained about the catching situation. But come on. Figure it out. Well, it's that much better.
I've heard mixed things about that. Number one, from Buck's mouth, and I think it was actually on the Francesa podcast I happened to listen to. Monzo sent me a link one day that Mike had Buck on. I was like, all right, what the hell, I'll check it out. And Buck, in that, Mike asked him something about, if you bring in a catcher, would you worry about that? Would you worry about that?
Yeah. Are you worried?
Would you worry about that he's got to handle a staff, whatever? And Buck basically said, look, with our staff, if your brain is working and you could hear, you'll be fine. So that was one take. And then I've just heard that Contreras not a great defensive catcher. The Mets may be concerned. They look at him more as a DH. Now, I know McCann's supposed to be coming back this week. But to your point, I mean, you would think the guy's been a major league catcher before. How bad can it be? I would worry a little bit about the defense from Contreras, but still not to a point where I wouldn't go get him because of it. I think there are better options, potentially, but, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, and I don't want to be fooled by this offense. And I don't want to say that they're not going to continue it in the postseason because what they do is supposed to continue in the postseason because it's not all or nothing. It's not home runs. I mean, it's a smart approach. It's down the line, whatever the hell they call it. But to me, I want no doubt whatsoever about that team being able to perform offensively in the postseason. I'm not worried about the staff. I'm still worried about deGrom. I mean, people who are celebrating the fact that he's going to be pitching. I mean, I need to see at least 5 starts from him before I'm confident that he's going to be pitching in the postseason.
Well, look, I'm going to the game Sunday. Plan on going to the game Sunday, which is scheduled to be deGrom start.
Yeah.
Right now, if you ask me if I know that he's pitching for sure, no, of course. So it's like one day at a time here. Let's see him get to the mound Tuesday. Let's see him get through the game Tuesday. You can't be looking at October or November right now with deGrom. I think it's a long way to go before you can trust him.
Yeah, I mean, the headlines are Jacob deGrom, the best trade deadline acquisition you could have. Could be the best addition that you could have because, I mean, it's been over a year since we've seen him.
And he is a bonus from him, I would think, at this point.
Yeah.
And how about him, too, with the contract? And maybe we get into this later. I mean, that's what we want to hear about now is him opting out.
Well, he was asked about it, and he was honest. So I'll give him credit for that. But how could you – I mean, to me, it's like the answer would be, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Haven't thrown a pitch in the big leagues in over a year.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to opt out of my contract.
Yeah, we'll see how, because if he comes back, gets hurt again, then he's obviously not going to opt out of the contract.
Right.
But he comes back and he's great in the postseason, well, hell yeah, he will, and he's going to get paid. But, I mean, this just, come back, pitch, be great, and then everything else will fall into place. And I don't want to be negative about Jacob deGrom. I mean, the guy's provided some of the most spectacular moments I've seen in a Mets uniform.
Sure.
He's been that good, but he's been that unreliable over the past year. It just show us something. I mean, we're not that type of market or that type of fan that's just going to allow you back because you're there. No, you got to prove it.
Right.
I mean, and especially during this season. I mean, 27 games over 500 is something that we're not used to.
Without him. Right. They're one of the best
him.
teams in baseball without him. So that's why I keep saying, like, they don't. It's different. Last year when they made that trade at the deadline, by the way, where they knew more about deGrom not being healthy than they let on, or at least that we did. Mm-hmm. So they went maybe halfway and figured, we need to move to try to make it look like it. So they make that trade for Baez, whatever. But last year, they fell apart without Jacob deGrom. This year, they haven't had him the whole year, and they're one of the best teams that we've ever seen in the history of the franchise. So, and obviously one of the better teams in baseball. It's different. Now, if they get Cy Young deGrom, clearly it's going to take them to a whole nother level that other teams don't have it. I was calling it the other day like a turbo boost that can kick in and take them to another level. Other teams cannot attain that. The Mets have that advantage, but he's got to go out there and actually do it.
All right, it is Boomer and Gio on the Fan, CBS Sports Network, and the free Odyssey app. Sal Licata in for Boomer this morning.